Thank you.
Right there. You earned that seat, young man.
I thought it was like it's a group, so I wouldn't be so scared. All right, thank you.
We are a group. You're among
Questions for
comrades.
Kwong?
Do you guys have some questions first about preparing or?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Lance.
Tell us about your selection process for your speech.
The selection process for this speech. Going back to when?
Well, no, in the last, because we had talked earlier
Yeah.
and you were looking at a different speech, and
Yeah.
then you came back and I'd asked you some specific questions and we were sort of looking at that, and I'm just curious because you wound up with a different speech than we were talking about originally.
Yes.
But you given that, I'm just, how did you wind up settling on that? What was your focus for selecting that speech over the others you were looking at?
Okay, so the process was on Friday morning, I actually had 2 speeches in my pocket. So I had less and more, which was the speech I ended up delivering, which was the one I thought I was going to deliver. And then early Saturday morning, I had this epiphany when I was lying awake in bed going, hey, maybe I should do this other speech because I think it might have a better connection. And then I shared it with a couple of my members from my district, and they all liked this other speech, which was called Knock. And I thought, all right, that's the speech I'm going to do. And then I had a session with Lance, and I was telling Lance both stories, and I was going to do this story, but the only issue was I hadn't gotten the conclusion down packed. And it was still a bit open. It wasn't nice and clear. And then Lance gave me a couple of ideas and asked me a few questions. Come afternoon, I was struggling with this speech. I was just struggling and trying to get the conclusion together. I was looking at my watch every half an hour going, I'm getting less and less time. If I don't get this conclusion, I don't have enough time to rehearse. And that sort of stressed me out. And then I spoke to some other people on the phone, got a lot of support from my district and other members, and then I had a conversation where I realized that internally this was the speech I wanted to deliver. Internally this was the speech I wanted to deliver because when I was discussing both speeches with a friend, she said, this speech you sound a little nervous and quaky. This speech your voice sounds a lot more confident. And I realized then that this was the speech that felt better for me. And that's how I ended up choosing this speech in the end. Yeah.
Thank you for your transparency on that.
So there's a concept I'm going to introduce you to. It's called
Yeah.
freeze the design. Okay? And what I mean by that is you've got to freeze the design. You can only clearly focus on one thing at a time. There's no such thing as multitasking. Just Google it, okay? So your energy was divided. Your subject matter was divided. And the other thing, too, is Darren says this all the time, you're the president, you're the CEO of your speech.
Yep.
I appreciate you going to other people, et cetera, but at the end of the day,
Yep.
you're the president, you're the CEO, you're the advisor, you got to decide.
Yep.
Commit.
Yep.
Just commit. And I think you would have done, I don't know, this is my personal opinion, knowing this backstory now, I think you would have done far better with this speech that you wanted to give in the first place emotionally,
Yep.
had you devoted all that energy to getting other people's opinion towards it.
Yeah.
It's just one person's opinion.
And I just want to, when I asked you, as I said, okay, you got these 2 speeches, I go, Kwong, which one do you want to deliver? And I watched Kwong go back and forth. He says, well, this is the one everybody seems to like and stuff like that. And I'm gonna say I could have pushed harder at that point. I'm going, yeah, but which one do you, because this is your speech.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Ed's saying. This is your speech, it's your message. Which one do you want to deliver? I talk a lot about our life force, our life energy that we bring to the stage. And it's not about a mechanical speech message where we recite what we rehearsed. It's about the fact that we believe in what we're saying. We want to reach that audience. We're putting our emotional energy, our spiritual energy into that speech. And that's where the connection happens. And that's what I was trying to, and at this point, I wish I would have kicked you around the room a little bit more. But
Now, that being said, I keep track of laughs. He got the most laughs out of all the speakers. He got the most laughs consistently throughout this entire speech.
So for everyone who would like to do better on stage, what do you think is your secret to being consistent? How many times have you been on the big stage?
Yeah.
I've been up on the final stage 4 times.
Wow.
4 times.
That's more than any of us.
yeah, number 2 twice.
Number two
three
twice,
once.
and now number three
Yeah,
once.
yeah.
Just missing number one.
So he's getting his money's worth. He's getting his money's worth.
And how do you go about finding stories, or where do you find the core?
It's the process has changed for me over the years because I've been participating so long. But I think 2011 was the first year I did 4 words, which was the first year where I started embracing trying to have my own real stories, my own real content, and taking my own experiences and trying to talk about that. And so from usually now, most of my speeches are taken from my own experiences. Sometimes I might tweak them a little or add stories together, but they're all my own stories. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned from competing?
The biggest lesson? That's a good question. I can't think of the biggest lesson.
Or
but
a lesson.
Yeah,
Listen,
one of the biggest lessons.
I'll give you this. I'll say every year I compete, I take home one really big lesson. And this year for me, it's not contradictory. It's sort of similar to what you said, but a different development. So in the past, we take input from people, and we learn to get input, and then you design your own speech. And then at one point in time, you're able to do it by yourself, where you don't need help from others. And I had said to myself, I can do it by myself now. I'm fine. And I've been doing that for a few years. Even last year, I said, I don't need to have my other team members come help me rehearse because I've been on the world stage twice. I've come second twice. I think I know what I'm doing. But this year slightly changed where I had some people who came in and helped me rehearse on the Friday night, and they were still able to give me these little pieces of nuggets which made my speech a whole lot better. Mm-hmm. So I would also say that you have to be able to design your own speech, but sometimes you're in your speech so much that it's hard to step out of it and just get those little pieces of nuggets that somebody from the outside may be able to give you to help improve it. Yeah.
So Darren, you have this great aphorism about listening to different types of feedback. So would you care to share that?
Oh,
There's 2 different types?
2 different types of feedback. If for those of you new to stage time, you'll get sick of hearing this. Perfect. One is, here's what I thought and felt. When you tell this story, here's what I thought and felt. Everyone is qualified to give you that. If most of them are confused, it's confusing. If most of them feel it or inspired, it's inspiring. So we're never looking for that one rogue person. We're looking for commonalities. Second kind of feedback is, here's how to make it better. Not everyone is qualified to tell you that. Notice the smile. That says a lot. Here it is, people, well-meaning people who aren't world-class coaches. It doesn't mean that they might be a wonderful person, but they're not qualified. I wasn't qualified until I started learning from Mark and getting the insights from him. So when I fell on my face on the speech and my practice speeches, well-meaning Toastmasters told me to get up sooner because they're uncomfortable. Yet Mark, when I went to Mark said, "Oh, Darren, you must stay down longer." Okay, he gave me the exact opposite advice because everyone else wanted me to make them feel comfortable. He wanted to make them feel uncomfortable so they'll feel something. So be careful who you listen to. You're the CEO of your speech.
Now, here's another piece of advice as well. Videotape every one of your presentations. Now, repeat after me. I look like that.
I look like that.
I sound like that.
I sound like that.
Get over it. All right, so please turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, you look like that. You sound like that.
You sound like that.
You need to get over it.
You need to get over it.
So here's something I've done differently this past year, which I think is absolute gold. Not only record yourself, but record yourself at such an angle so that you can actually see the audience members. Okay? I have a rule, and the rule is the audience decides. The audience decides what works and what does not work. It's not me. And I'm looking for 3 types of reactions. I'm listening to what I call an audience ah. So if I get an audience aha, guess what? Emotionally, you've just connected with them. If I hear them going mm-hmm or shaking their heads, okay, so that's nonverbal. Or if I hear them laughing. So there's 3 different forms of feedback the audiences are giving you either silently or through body language. So if you capture those on the video, and then we go a step further, we actually have the script transcribed. So if you have the script transcribed, you can see the actual words, the actual sentence that delivered that emotional reaction. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's the type of feedback that you want to capture.
Ed, sitting in the front row with all of you, Aaron, Kwong, and Louisa, each elicited that from a number of you. Which I'm like, okay, they got it.
And just to throw some other stuff in there, when I was especially prepping for my world championship, and like Darren and Ed both have said, Toastmasters love to rewrite your speeches for you. I mean, everybody has an idea, and most of them are not well thought out or lucid. Okay? Yeah. What I did, I actually put a little form together, and I said, what did you like, what worked, what didn't you like, what you didn't connect with you, and what was my message? And I said, that's all I'm looking for, because like Ed's saying, I was working to be the CEO of my speech. I knew what I wanted to say. My question was the audience getting it? What were they getting it? And if they were telling me that didn't connect, I'm going to change it, but I didn't need them to tell me how to change it. I knew what I wanted to say. And yes, there were earlier years when I started, I was trying to create feedback, had people tell me what to do, but quite honestly, my journey up this path was throughout my life, so I had 5 sisters. For most of my life, I had people telling me what to do. There's a reason I live in California, not Indiana, okay? So I really wanted to discover my voice and my speaking style. And so I had to walk that path. And what I see, and to reiterate what Ed was saying, there comes a point where you say, I'm going to own this is mine, and is my impact actually hitting the audience like I want it? And the audience does decide whether it's working or not, but you're the source. And don't turn that source over to people that aren't as knowledgeable or as experienced as you are, don't have any skin in the game. Because I said there are so many suggestions I had that if I had taken them, I'd be pushing a grocery cart in LA right now. So anyway.
I love your writing. Absolutely. Because when I listen to a speech, I listen to the writing. So examples of the writing. I mean, the title was called Less and More. Mom says, party less, study more. I should have judged her less and helped her more. I mean, and you have this alliteration throughout the entire speech. Tell me about your writing mindset. How do you approach writing a speech?
That's a good question. I think the way I go about it is trying to think about what's that final destination? What's the final destination? What's that final message? And then what's the best way to write the speech to get to that final destination? Because you can write it in many different ways. I think before, when I first started, I was starting off where I had a rough idea what my theme was, and then I just started writing. And it was just from the start to the beginning, so it just seemed like a very boring novel. But once I realized this is what I want to get to, what's the best way to get that message out and tell it, then I know how to elicit the emotions or the humor to get to that destination.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I have a tough question for you to help everyone in the room, and I'm going to give you the right to pass.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the right to pass, and
Okay.
it's okay.
Okay.
Because it's a tough one.
Okay.
But I think it would be super helpful if you'd be willing to talk about it.
Okay.
How do you cope with not winning? Because we all not win. Ed and I and Lance still bomb when we do keynotes. Now our bombing might not be.
Wait, time out. Whoa. We?
I've seen a couple. Anyway,
We can be here all day on this one, okay? Ed's over in 2 minutes. I can be here all day on this one. Go ahead.
but our bombs now are not. The audience might not feel it, but we know we didn't nail it. So, and there's varying degrees, and my bombs now aren't nearly as bad as they used to be, because we're constantly learning. That's why I like hanging around with everyone, Mark, Lance, Ed, because we're constantly trying to get better. We're constantly trying to get better. My favorite compliment ever now is when I go back to a district and they say, wow, I saw you 6 years ago, you're great. Now you're so much better. Like, that means I'm on the right path. So,
But let's be clear, he didn't bomb.
yeah, I was
No,
using.
but number 3 out of 30,000. You know what?
I'm not
I'll
saying-
take that all day long. Anybody here?
I was just referring to keynote speeches that but anyway, you understand. So are you willing to give some
Yeah, I'm
insight?
happy to share. I wasn't sure. Did you want to say something?
No, I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Lance could actually write the book on this.
Yeah,
No, but seriously, how many times did you compete?
13 years.
13 years.
Listen, I lost at my club the first 9 years. And it wasn't as a horrible speaker. First of all, I had a mental block on, because I was told the international speech competition was like you had 5 to 7 minutes to speak to the world. And that scared the crap out of me. I go, what would I say? So every time I went to write a speech, it was like, this is a speech that has to salvage mankind.
Whoa.
And the other thing is, we had, in '99, we had the number 4 club in the world in Toastmasters with 95 members. My club contest was harder than the district contest. We would have 12 speakers of excellent level in my club contest.
Wow.
Okay, so you see both sides of it. But in the end, I did find the 5 to 7 minutes to speak to the world message within me that I would give the world that would change mankind, which is quit finding what's wrong with people and point out what's right. And that was sitting there, but that was a journey. But yeah, 13 years, and just to that, I was talking to Jim about this. It's one thing to compete and lose and have that emotional drop. It's another thing to compete and sit there and go, I nailed it, I won it, and then have that emotional drop. And anybody ever do that?
Well, I got it right the first time.
You got it right the first time. Yeah. but no, dealing with the losses. One of the biggest lessons I got out of the World Championship was learning how to lose. And I want you to. I can talk for hours on this. Go ahead, Kwong.
Okay.
I don't want to
We're actually going to let you speak.
You're going to let me speak now. All right. So 2011 was the first time I came second in the world, and at that time, I came second. Even though I lost, I was over the moon, because just to get to the final stage at the time was unbelievable for me, and the fact that I could take home a trophy, I was like, woohoo, this is amazing. The second time I made it to the final stage was 2014, and at the time I delivered what I thought was an amazing speech that I knew everybody loved, and I thought I knocked it out of the park, and I had it. And then Dhananjaya came up, he did his speech, and everyone was like cheering, woo! And I knew he had won. And I was upset for a while after that. I knew he had the better speech, but obviously emotionally I felt quite down. And then last year was probably the time when I felt the worst. So in 2014, even though I came second, I lost to a better speech. I was a bit upset, but I was able to come out of it because I thought, yes, Dhananjaya had a way better speech than I, so he deserved to win. Last year, I just had an amazing speech, but I didn't deliver it the way I wanted to. And so I actually sat backstage at the end of delivering my speech, and I just sat there, head down, going, how did I ruin my best speech I've ever had that I loved the most? How did I ruin it up on the world stage? And even now, I haven't gone back to watch that video.
Wow.
TMI sent that to me a few months later, but I have never watched it again because I felt like I had ruined my best speech ever. And that's why I talked a little bit about redemption this year, was like just to be able to get back out there. It was really important. And this year I just had a totally different mindset. Because last year I still had that mindset of I want to win. And this year I was like, look, I just want to go out and have fun. And even though I came third, honestly, I came third this year, but it felt like the time I came second in 2011. It felt like, wow, this is such a great achievement. And I'm just glad I found that feeling.
I have a question I want to ask, because we had some conversations on this. Taking second and then coming back the next year. And I've talked to Jim, who took second twice. And it's one thing to take second, you come back and compete again, and there's a lot of pressure on you at that point, because you were number 2 last year. What did, when you took second in, what was it, 2011?
Yep.
And then you were coming back the next year to compete again, or in a couple years, and there's all that pressure, like, can I actually, I don't want to, like, not make it out of division or something, right?
Yeah.
On it, how did you deal with that? What was your focus to come back against that almost win?
Yeah. So in 2011, I have to thank Lance. At the end of 2011, I came second. I was at the top of the world, and people were going, "Oh, you're going to compete again? You're going to compete again?" And I was like, "I'm second in the world. That's pretty amazing." And I had those fears. If I try again next year, if I can't get out of division or if I don't win the district, I'm never going to be. That second title will disappear. And that was a huge fear for me. And that's something that Lance and I talked about. So in 2012, I said, no, I'm going to compete because I just want to face that fear. So I think I mentioned yesterday, every year I have something that drives me to compete. In 2012, it was, I want to overcome that fear. Because if I don't compete, then the reason why I don't compete, it's not because I don't want to compete, it's because I'm scared of losing. So in 2012, I competed, I lost in the district, but I was actually quite happy because I faced my fear, and that was really important for me.
Yeah, good job, good job.
Mark Brown.
For Kwong. Hey. I like this man. We hung out in China for a whole day. We bought the biggest mango you ever saw in the world. It's crazy. And I've always admired Kwong's heart. And the idea of, the idea of getting that close and not winning, did you find there was pressure from your district to go back again and make us proud?
I felt pressure definitely internally. I said, oh, I've got to do this for my district. My district wants me to, win it. And even though people didn't say it, I felt it. But now I think, was that just me telling myself that? Or was it really them saying, you've got to go win it? Because now I also feel that so many, not just my district, but most of China and the 3 districts there support me every year. And even though I don't win it, I can feel their support, and that's really important. Yeah.
So do you have any goals now, speaking-wise, outside of Toastmasters? Either doing a TEDx speech or being a professional, or are you? I don't even know.
He's a pro.
Yeah, so now I do trainings. I'm a freelance, or I work for a company where I do go around doing trainings. So
What
that's
subject?
been fun. Communications. Yeah, communications training. I'm not an expert in anything else, but hopefully I've got enough experience now to be able to talk about presenting and communications a bit.
Yeah, I actually saw Kwong present in Dubai a year and a half ago. He did an hour-long module for one of his programs. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
What was cool too is you could just tell when you came in second, and every time after that you took the stage, that there was this. The crowd loves you, and that's something that we can't coach. And you just have that, and I just want to remind you, like, you're awesome. Like what you do, and the fact that we're all rooting for you. Like, don't ever lose that. And if there's any way we can help you, please ask, because we're fans of you.
Thank you.
Well, just a couple final thought. Number one, high likability. Yes? Okay. Again, unteachable. And the other thing is, he also has talent. So I mean, I will say this about every speaker yesterday, they all have talent. People who compete, that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes that's the missing element. And can you work yourself and work really, really hard? You can work and be a better speaker. Yes. Does that make sense? Yeah. You can always get better. You can always improve in your business life, in your professional life, and things of that nature. But at this level, the other element is talent, and you, my friend, have lots and lots of talent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
right. Excellent.
Give Kwong a round of applause. Thanks for coming out. We welcome you to stick around or whatever. Thank you. So if you see the value in world-class feedback like that, you will love Stage Time University. If you're an experienced presenter, sometimes we're wondering, what's that little technique or that idea that I've been doing this for a while, but what do I need? We've designed Stage Time so you get world-class processes that you can take with you every time you take the stage, and we give you an opportunity to get world-class feedback on our live weekly calls. So check out Stage Time University, dive right in, become a member of Stage Time University, where we help you become unforgettable.